Okay, today we're going to talk about solving quadratic equations, and I'm going to show you a different method to solve other than factoring and completing the square. And that is if we use what's called the quadratic formula. So that's going to give you your answers or your roots when you cannot factor an equation. So first thing, we need to memorize this formula. So it says x equals negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So to use the quadratic formula, we're going to make sure that the equation is in standard form. Standard form is your ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We're then going to list the a, b, and c values. Very important, where students sometimes make careless mistakes. Your a is the number in front of the x squared. Your b is the number with the sign in front of the x. And the c is the number that's all by itself. We're going to plug those values into the formula and then simplify using the order of operations. So if we look at the first example here, it says x squared minus 9 plus 5 equals 0. Typically, you would say, can I factor it? And to factor this, you would say, are there two numbers that add to negative 9 and multiply to 5? There are not. So here's where we're going to use the quadratic formula. First, off to the side, we're going to list a, b, and c. A is the number in front of x squared, so it's a 1. B is the number in front of x, so negative 9. And c is the number all by itself. Now we're going to write down the formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac, and the whole thing is over 2a. Now we're going to plug in our numbers. So I have x equals negative, b is negative 9, plus or minus the square root. Again, b is negative 9, so negative 9 squared minus 4, a is 1, and c is 5. The whole thing is over 2 times a. Now we're going to simplify. So if you know negative negative is a positive, so we have positive 9, plus or minus. Now I know some of you don't like to do a lot of math in your head, so we're going to cheat. On your calculator, you're going to type in just what I boxed in, no square root sign. If you do that, you end up getting, here you're going to end up getting 20, and then we're going to put that over 2 times 1, which is 2. Now the last step here is to simplify. So if I look at the radical, and I'm going to do this off to the side, I have radical 20. So in your head, two numbers that multiply to 20, one is a perfect square. Hopefully you pick 4 times 5. The square root of 4 is 2. So that radical 20 simplifies to 2 radical 5. So I get x equals 9 plus or minus 2 radical 5 over 2. And that is my answer. The only way we could simplify that further is if something went into the 9, the 2, and the 2. If I could divide all those by 2, I would, or 3, or 4. Next example. If I look at this, the first thing I want to do is make sure that my equation is in standard form. To do that, I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. Notice I leave the 8 at the end because I always want my squared, then my x, then my plain number. Off to the side, I suggest that you write down your a, your b, and your c values. It's 1, 4, and negative 8. Then we're going to write down the formula. Now we're going to plug in what we know, our values. So we have negative b, so that becomes negative 4, plus or minus the square root. B squared, so that's 4 squared minus 4, 1, negative 8, over 2 times 1. Now I'm going to simplify. This becomes negative 4, plus or minus. Again, for those of you that hate to do the math in your head, you can type just that box in the calculator, and you are going to get 48. And that becomes over 2. Once again, because I have a radical 48, we're going to try to simplify it. So off to the side here, factors of 48. Hopefully we pick 16 times 3. The square root of 16 is 4. So I can rewrite this as x equals -4 plus or minus 4 radical 3 over 2. Now if I look at my answer, I've got a -4, a +4, and a 2. I know all of those are divisible by 2. So if I divide by 2, divide by 2, and divide by 2, my final answer here becomes -2 plus or minus 2 radical 3. Technically, you can put that over 1. You do not have to. Next example. Again, the first thing I want to do is put it in standard form. So I'm going to minus 10x from each side. Notice I put it in the middle because I do want it written in standard form. Off to the side, let's list the A, the B, and the C values. So I have 1, -10, and 2. We're going to write down the formula. We're going to plug in what we know. B is -10 plus or minus the square root, -10 squared minus 4, 1, 2, all over 2 times 1. If I simplify, 2 negatives over here become a positive. Again, for those of you that hate to do math, type that in your calculator exactly as I have it written in blue. You're going to get 100 minus 8, which is 92, all over 2. Now we're going to try to simplify the 92. So off to the side, I'm going to write radical 92. I'm going to find factors. 4 times 23 gives me 92. The square root of 4 is 2. So my answer becomes 10 plus or minus 2 radical 23 over 2. And the last step, if I look at these numbers here, they're all divisible by 2. So I'm going to reduce it, 5, 1, 1. So my answer becomes x equals 5 plus or minus radical 23. And those are the roots to that equation. Last one. Again, the first thing I want to do is make sure that my equation is in standard form. I'm going to minus 4x, and I'm going to minus 1. So here I have x squared minus 4x minus 1. Off to the side, equals 0. List my A, my B, and my C. My A is 1, my B is -4, my C is -1. We're going to write the formula. Every time you write it out, you have a better chance of accidentally memorizing it. We're going to plug in what we know. So here we have x equals negative, B is -4, plus or minus the square root, -4 squared minus 4, 1, -1 over 2 times 1. We're going to simplify. 2 negatives here give me a positive. Again, for those of you who hate to do math in your head, you can type this in exactly as you see it. 16 plus 4 is 20. That's going to give me 20 all over 2. Again, the radical 20, we always want to try and simplify the radical when we can. That's 4 times 5. The square root of 4 is 2, so that simplifies to 2 radical 5. So now I have x equals 4 plus or minus 2 radical 5 over 2. And the very last step, anything go into 4, 2, and 2? We can divide each of them by 2. And I end up with x equals 2 plus or minus radical 5 as my answer. Again, if you have any questions about using the quadratic formula, please make sure that you write them down and either email me or ask me next time you see me in class.